You're tuned in to The Andrew Lawton Show.
Kris Sims is the Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation and joins me as always on Mondays. Kris, I'm pulling you away from a staff meeting today, so I don't know if I should say thank you or you're welcome.
I can say thank you for now.
All right. Well, let's start with the basics here. What has the government announced on this media bailout, which seems to be a continuous plan of theirs now?
Yes, to your point, and all excellent points on this, Andrew, as always. So far, up until now, the so-called media bailout has been just shy of $600 million for journalists outside of the CBC. Keep in mind, viewers, this is other than CBC reporters. So up until now, they would get on average around $14,000 or so per reporter. So per newsroom employee, if they had this so-called bailout money that was coming from the Trudeau government in a newsroom, they would get between $13,000 and $14,000 per reporter. Now, this entire time, a lot of these big media companies had a lobby group that was working on their behalf in Ottawa, hand out, asking for more money. Lo and behold, during the budget update last week from Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, slipped in there to protect the free press, if you can believe it. They have now more than doubled that amount. So by the time the smoke clears, it looks like each reporter or each newsroom employee will be getting around $28,000 or $29,000. This is again coming from the federal government. So the Taxpayers Federation are super ticked off for two reasons. One, this is an enormous waste of money. There is no way in hell that one nickel of taxpayers' money should go to any private corporation. We're opposed to all corporate welfare, much less media companies. Two, this is a huge and obvious conflict of interest. And Coyne himself has said this directly in newspapers, basically saying we'll be seen as bagmen for the government if we take this money, folks. This is a huge conflict of interest. So to see him sort of changing his tune a little bit on the ad issue panel is pretty disappointing. At the end of the day, this means more money for journalists who are on the payroll already of the Trudeau government.
Well, and the one part of this that I find the most ridiculous is that there's no measure at all of success. And more importantly, there's no target for sustainability because, everyone knows that old saying about teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime versus when you give him a fish and you feed him for a day. Well, this is government giving journalists fish year after year after year. The problems that plague newsrooms, the reason that these newsrooms are in such dire straits and are laying off people is because they don't have a viable business model. This subsidy doesn't charge it, which means it becomes a permanent fixture in the Canadian economy unless a politician comes along and says, well, I'm going to cut you guys off, which then it's very easy to end a government program politically, as we know.
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, I'll go a step further. It's the subsidy itself, I think, that is helping to destroy their businesses. So as we've seen government funding of media creep up over the last few years, we have seen the people's trust in media tank. Just absolutely tank. I've never seen it this bad before. And surprise, the two are obviously related. So the last poll I saw, it was this big in-depth dive. They do it for the past 20 years. It's this corporation in Canada that does a survey on trust. And the last number I saw, I think it was 64% of Canadians now think that journalists are actively trying to mislead them with statements they know to be false. As a journalist, that hurts a lot because you're supposed to lose sleep over a mistake, over a typo, over getting a number or a date wrong by accident, by innocent mistake. No, forget that. Now, a big chunk of a majority of Canadians now think that they're actively trying to mislead them. And that's likely connected to the fact that they're on the government's payroll. And what's really disappointing about this, Andrew, is that this doesn't have to be about politics. This could be a left-wing journalism organization or a right-wing or one that tries to stay straight down the middle. You shouldn't take a nickel from the government because one of your roles as a journalist is to speak truth to power. And if you're counting on the people in the halls of power for your paycheck, you are not being accountable to the people. You are not speaking truth to power. You are not comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. You're asking the comfortable for a handout. That is not real journalism. And further, there's no way then that people who support organizations like the Taxpayers Federation or who watch True North, or even people on the left, there's no way then, if we have more journalists going on the government payroll by the day and them getting more money by the day, there's no way for them to hold the government to account using these organizations. How are they to believe the numbers and the reports coming out of the parliamentary press gallery when they're wondering in the back of their mind, all right, how much of your paycheck is counting on Justin Trudeau?
Yeah, and I think that's where, and I'm glad you gave credit where it's due to Andrew Coyne on this. He has been fairly good on this issue because it does undermine the good journalists who are just trying to be there, that are not beholden to this, but are now part of a climate that is. And I've said the same in the past about Unifor membership. A lot of print reporters in Canada are members of Unifor. Unifor declared itself the official opposition, effectively, to the Conservatives in the last two elections. And if you're a reader, how are you not supposed to wonder, well, hang on, is this union steward at this local newspaper not in the bag for one particular side as well?
Yeah, exactly. And it's to your point of perception here. And right now, I hope that there are some journalists watching this and thinking about it, because I know there must be, by the law of numbers and the people I've worked with in the past of various media organizations, there must be people right now thinking, A, I'm not really comfortable with this as a reporter, or B, I'm doing my job, I'm trying really hard, I'm being balanced. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, because just as in ethics, it is the perception of corruption which matters. Now, because people know that an increasing number of reporters are on the government payroll, it clouds everybody with suspicion. And so it's truly, really sad and unfair for those reporters who are doing their damnedest to keep all their W-5 straight, to keep their facts straight, to be as balanced as they possibly can. Doesn't matter. They'll be perceived as being on the payroll of the federal government nonetheless. And this is critically important because it's happening simultaneously along with a crackdown on independent media voices. So with one hand, it's, you picture it like a vice grip, okay? Like the ones that you use in shop class. On the one side of that metal panel, we've got Trudeau increasingly funding certain media organizations and certain reporters. On the other side, he's tightening this vice on online journalism and independent journalism using things like C11 and C18. So C18 is the reason why you suddenly can't see news on Facebook anymore. Google has said they're going to follow suit and pull their news links off the internet. That's because of the Trudeau government. And two, C11 is now passed, and the CRTC is rolling out its regulations. And they have announced that platforms that host podcasts, including shows like this, are now going to need to register in order to be regulated. What that means as far as free expression goes, we don't know, which is why we're super concerned about these two things happening at the same time.
Very well said. I'm just flattered you think I was in shop class rather than the theater, arts, music nerd that I was.
I did 4 years of metalwork, including auto mechanics. So yeah,
I understand what a vice grip is, at least. I didn't need to use that. We didn't need like a cello analogy to speak my language. But nevertheless, thank you so much, Kris Sims. I'll let you get back to your staff meeting. Send my best to your wonderful colleagues, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for listening to The Andrew Lawton Show. Support the program by donating to True North at www.tnc.news.